Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coach-your-PO. All lowercase, all one word, that's bit.ly/coach-your-PO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello everybody, welcome to our special Friday this week with Matthias Kostwein. Hey Matthias, welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. So it's special Friday because Matthias is a product owner, not a Scrum Master. And we're going to ask Matthias about what a great Scrum Master is. That will be a little bit later in the episode. But first, we'll start with the horror story. So Matthias, share with us, what's the worst Scrum Master anti-pattern you've witnessed in your career?
So the worst Scrum Master anti-pattern I've witnessed is or was born out of protectiveness for the team. So again, I was very lucky in generally working with only good people. But in this case, I joined a project that had a very demanding client. And over the course of this, the team became very reclusive. They became very inwardly focused. They had lost a vast majority of their drive towards customer focus, business improvement. They were very focused on the technology. They were focused on improving their babies, so to speak. But what had happened in that is that the Scrum Master had seen a lot of difficult situations. And so the Scrum Master started to also become very team focused. They'd start to block everything that would affect the team, no matter the consequences. Even when it was a clear client request, they started blocking and they started demanding the team be involved in every single decision, even if it was a decision that would affect the client relationship. And that's really where, especially from a PO perspective, it becomes really difficult, because in an agency, there's always a balance to be made between what we do for our clients, where do we push back, where do we keep the safety of our team the highest priority, but where do we also need to accept the reality that we are working in a business that sometimes means you have to push a little harder, both for a PO as well as for a team. And there we really had seen a Scrum Master that had fallen off completely to one side, which means they were no longer investing time in process improvements. They were no longer investing time in any sort of velocity improvements into tools and processes that could help that. What they were doing is constant health checks with the team, spending all of their times just trying to make sure the team was okay. And that went on for over a year before I joined the project. And you can still feel it to this day in the team.
What do you think you're a product owner, obviously, although you were in that project, you were in that role, you were in that project in the role of the product owner. And obviously, when you look at Scrum Masters, you have certain expectations, and we'll talk about that in a second when we talk about what the great Scrum Master is for you. But when you have those expectations and you see a situation like this, like the team is being protected maybe too much. The Scrum Master is focusing only on the personal well-being of the team members and not really on the context of the project, or at least not enough on the context of the project. What do you think a great Scrum Master would do in that situation?
So what I think a great Scrum Master would do is start to slowly try and break up that shell, to start fostering an understanding for the client again, while keeping a level of trust high, together with the product owner, together with the extended project leadership, to make sure they understand they have the safety that will keep them safe, but that they have also been going into a direction that is no longer client focused. So it's first to get them understanding of the place they're in, because they haven't even really noticed it because it was building up so slowly. Make them understand the situation they're in, what the consequences are, and then push them out of their comfort zone. I think it's absolutely fine every once in a while to be pushed out of your comfort zone. We grow through adversity as long as we have a safe base, as long as we know and support each other in a team. We are allowed to push each other out of our comfort zone
And
once in a
that's
while.
actually a great point, because many people might consider that a safe environment is an environment where everybody feels comfortable all the time, but actually it isn't. It's the opposite. People need to feel comfortable all the time because they are not safe. That's why we keep safe, right? Like that's why we focus so much on comfort. But when people feel that they are in a safe environment, then they are ready to take risks. And what this story also suggests to me, other than what you just said, is also the fact that the Scrum Master was not really focusing on the team's growth because perhaps the Scrum Master themselves were not feeling safe anymore, right?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the key reasons. The Scrum Master was overworked. So they had gotten themselves into a situation where they felt they could no longer handle all the necessary requirements. So one of the first things we did is to pull the Scrum Master off the second project they had. So we made sure they had the time, but ultimately we saw that there was no longer really the safety and the drive in the Scrum Master on this project because they had so much history with it, so that we discussed it with them and they decided to move to another project. And we got in someone new, someone with a bit more client focused, who could really push the team
And
out of
didn't
their
have all
comfort
of that
zone.
history, right?
Exactly. They didn't have all of the history, and they could challenge some topics with a new set of eyes because they didn't know what had happened 2 years ago. And
Absolutely. And
they,
sometimes that naivete is important, right? Like, I don't know, I don't even think about it because I don't know about it. So I'll just ask the question, right?
exactly. And then they say, and if you very, as you said, naively ask, why don't we do that? And they're like, yeah, because 2 years ago this happened. And then you ask, yeah, but that was 2 years ago. Has it happened since? And then we're like, no. And then, so why don't we try it? And we're going to make sure this doesn't happen instead of going, oh, this happened 2 years ago. We can't do that.
Absolutely. And here in this story, we learn that the growth of the team requires the growth of the Scrum Master, which is a repeating pattern all over the stories that we share here on the podcast, that in order for us to be able to help the teams when the team is in trouble, we have to grow as a result of that as well as Scrum Masters. And of course, we want to grow, obviously, because we want to be successful Scrum Masters. And we want to hear now, Matthias, your perspective on what that is. So describe for us what was potentially the best Scrum Master you've ever worked with.
So the best Scrum Master I've ever worked with had one very clear understanding. And that's, I think, going to be a bit controversial, but I'm interested to see your take on it. He understood that his ultimate goal is to make himself obsolete, to grow the team, to enable the team that they could do everything Scrum requires without him. And when I came on that project, it was the first project I was on. It was very difficult. It was distraught. It was troubled. And by the end of the year, so I joined in February, by the end of the year, the Scrum Master had managed to remove himself from being 100% on the project down to 20%. Because the only thing he did was check in every once in a while, did do a health check with the team to make sure everything was going well. And when he saw anti-patterns emerge, when he saw things not going quite well, he joined for a bit. He makes sure we understand why, what we were doing wrong, or where we need improvement. And then he was fine with being 20% again. And that was really something where I saw he had genuinely understood that the goal is for the development team and the product owner to be as self-sufficient as possible, to understand and to implement it themselves.
So one thing that I'm interested in from that perspective, and we've heard that definition of success for Scrum Masters quite often here on the podcast, but now that I have a product owner here, I do want to hear. You also coach product owners, right? That's one of the things that we talk about a lot here on the podcast. We even produced an e-course for Scrum Masters that want to coach their product owner. I'll put a link on the show notes so that people can check it out. But when you talk to your product owners, the product owners that work with these Scrum Masters you're describing for us, what do you tell them? What do you tell product owners that helps them contribute to that building of autonomy and independence at the team level?
I tell them, first off, to just what I told you. This is what I expect a Scrum Master to do. What I also tell them is the second part, and that's, I'm not sure if that is a specific agency topic, but I also expect delivery focus from my Scrum Masters. I expect them to understand that they're not just here to make everyone in the team happy. I expect them to understand that they are as much responsible for the delivery of the team as every other team member, and that their part is fostering this mentality of delivery, of client orientation, in the team, because they are a valuable member of the team. A lot of the team members look up to them. If they say this is how we do things, a lot of developers will say, yeah, if the Scrum Master says it, we'll do it. So they need to be aware of their responsibility in that case. And then to the POs, I say, understand why we do what we do in Scrum. Don't just read the Scrum Guide, because everyone can read these 8 pages. Make sure you understand what's the reasoning behind it. And that is really important, that you discuss this with your Scrum Master, that you have regular conversations on what you want to achieve, how you want your team to become mature, to have this understanding of being a team that is highly performant, that is delivering, that is a safe workspace, and to allow a Scrum Master to, at some point, retreat back into the background and just be in a more, let's call it, mentoring and guiding sort of way, and less in an operative, I need to handle a daily, because as if my team wasn't able to handle a daily by themselves.
Absolutely. I really like that, because it also puts into the focus this, what I call the dynamic duo aspect, right? That PO and Scrum Master are actually two sides of one role. And that role, which is divided into by Scrum, that role is that of helping the team succeed. One, the product owner, from the perspective of understanding what needs to be done and what the priorities are. And then the other, the Scrum Master, from the perspective of understanding how we work and how do we become better at how we work, right? So I really like that perspective. Matthias, unfortunately, we're getting close to the end, but before we go, do share with us, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
So probably mostly on LinkedIn. I don't really use Twitter. I think I've posted 3 tweets in my entire life, and one of them is about maths class not being particularly fun. So
not long ago.
Yeah, it was, well, to be honest, I started studying again in 2016. So wasn't that long ago, but yeah. No, mostly LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out if you have questions. I'm always happy to discuss anything related to Scrum. I think the link you can include anyway.
Absolutely. The link will be in the show notes.
Great. And there you can also find where I work, because I don't want to pitch it too obvious, but we're always looking for new talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And do check out Matthias' LinkedIn page, and why not ask questions? Because, dear Scrum Masters, this is a product owner that is willing to help you think about the product owner perspective. So why not do that? Ask Matthias. Matthias, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you. It was an absolute blast. I really enjoyed it, and looking forward to hear from the people.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts. as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.